welcome to the Quarterbacks Room. We're glad you're joining us. Just a reminder that the Quarterbacks Room is brought to you by Florida Football Prep for all your football needs, whether it's customized team gear, top-notch training, or the best prepared footballs in the game to get your team game ready. Go to Florida Football Prep. That's www.floridafootballprep.com. Also, give us a like, give us a 5-star review, and subscribe. We appreciate all the efforts there. So this has kind of been a weird weekend in college sports, and a lot of stuff's been going on. Well, not a lot of stuff. One thing major has happened. And if you've been following this program for more than a minute, what is the thing I've talked a lot about, Miles?
What do you mean?
I mean, what's something I've harped on for a while when it comes to college athletics? Like being bad.
The athletic department?
No. But what about the NIL situation?
Yeah.
So we've been talking about NIL for a while here on the program. And something that you should always know is that, look, college athletes, in my opinion, should be treated as employees of the university, should get paid commensurate with their what they're bringing in to a degree. But also remember that college athletes are getting free room, free board, free college education, which used to be enough. But today, with all the money involved in college athletics, or specifically college football and to some extent college basketball, that dynamic has shifted a little bit. But to think about it, where things have been going, where it's been unregulated by the NCAA, has really taken a weird turn, and it's gotten worse and worse. And when I say that, Miles, one of the things that I was mentioning is what happened this weekend.
Nico asked for $4 million and then transferred out because Tennessee just let him go.
Yeah, so I guess the thing to think about is, there's a couple issues at play. Number one, timing. When did Nico do it? Number two, how much he was asking for versus what his skill set brings to the team. And three, there's just the nature of the negotiations to begin with, and overall the landscape of what impact this has on college football. So, Miles, when did he decide he was going to, what actually happened? He sat out, right? He didn't go to team meetings or practice, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is he the first college athlete that sat out and skipped practices and stuff? Do you know that? That for a nil negotiation?
No.
Who else did?
No, I just don't know who else did.
Yeah, so he is the only one to skip practices and not go to team meetings, et cetera, and come up with some lame excuse later. He had a dental appointment. Also, it's come out since then that his parents, or his dad specifically, was shopping him around to other schools asking for $4 million, going to other schools and saying, hey, pay me and we'll get Nico over here. He'll transfer to your school. And but there is also the case, do you remember last year at UNLV? Do you remember what happened there in the early part of the year? When they were 3-0?
Sluka.
Yeah, Sluka.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had that like $100,000 nil deal that he thought he was owed $100,000, and he didn't get paid it, and then he sat out and then he entered the portal. I think he's at James Madison now, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he is.
So is James Madison a Division I school? I can't remember.
Yeah, they're in the Sun Belt.
They're in the Sun Belt. Okay. So anyway, so he's in the Sun Belt Conference now, and I don't know. He's got 1 year of eligibility left, and he's out there, and he's gonna play his last year. We'll see how he does. But okay, so Nico waited. He was in negotiations. Wanted $4 million a year. He's getting $2.4 million right now. Wanted $4 million a year. Decided after taking all the reps, the first team reps during spring practice, the day before the spring game, sitting out, basically sending the message, I'm not going to play in the spring game, and you guys got to pay me. So in other words, Tennessee was held up and told, you won't have a quarterback if you don't pay me, because you've given me all these reps. I'm the only one ready to come in. You don't have anybody to back you up. What kind of message, just with that part of it, Miles, what kind of message do you think that sends to the team and to the locker room?
He only cares about himself, just not the team.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, it's a weird situation to look at. Now, you look at the timing of it, the amount of money he was looking for. Now, let's break this down a little bit, Miles. How good was Nico last year for Tennessee?
Not that good.
I mean, his stats were pretty mid. He threw against, if you take out, I think he threw 19 total touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken.
11. Well,
he threw 19 total, but if you take out the FCS and the G5, he threw 11. So if you take out the FCS schools and the G5 schools that Tennessee played out of conference, he threw 11 touchdowns against 9 other teams. So that's the SEC teams. Then you take in, he had 5 interceptions. Now, here's an interesting thing. Of those 11 touchdowns, how many do you think were against the bottom 3 teams of the SEC?
5 or 6.
Six touchdowns. 6 of those 11 touchdowns were against 4 against Vanderbilt, 1 against Kentucky, and 1 against Mississippi State.
He threw 1 touchdown against Kent State, I think.
Yeah, but that's I didn't even count that in the statistics, because that's FC or out of conference. So we're looking at against SEC opponents and P4 opponents. He threw 11 touchdowns. His average was like 213 yards.
Yeah.
And 60, I think, like 61% completion rate,
Yeah,
which isn't
61.
bad. But when you consider that it's 61% completions, but all his passes had to have been short. And I remember watching. Do you remember watching the Oklahoma game? We watched that, didn't we? And Tennessee versus Oklahoma, because we were rooting for Tennessee because we had a relationship with the head coach and with one of the other coaches on staff there, and we watched that game rooting for him, and I was just amazed at how he could not throw a deep ball. You know, he struggled with throwing the deep ball, and so every pass, if you look at his yardage across the season, he typically would throw for anywhere between 160 to like 200 yards roughly. He had one really good game. He had like one really good game against Kentucky where he threw for like 289 yards. But that was Kentucky, who was the bottom dweller of the SEC that year. Am I right?
Yeah.
So he did not look worth $4 million. He's a very mid-level quarterback. So what do you think he was using for leverage to try to get that kind of money?
Being a 5-star.
Well, and then being the only quarterback in the starting quarterback in the quarterback room, and then threatening to sit out. Now, this is where it gets interesting, because what Coach Heupel and Danny White did kind of set the stage for all of college football. When they said, yeah, no, you're not going to sit out, and you know what, we're just going to move on. And that sends a message, because if they had buckled under this, what would happen next?
They would lose a lot of money, and
Well, no, but I mean, across college football, what would happen?
more people would be getting paid more money, and then.
Well, they would sit out and trying to get money, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and then not only would they sit out before the spring game, but think about this: you're getting ready to your season opener, right? And the season opener is sitting there, and all of a sudden, your starting quarterback or one of your starting wide receivers or your star running back comes up and says, you know what, you guys owe me, I would like, instead of the $1.2 million you're paying me, I would like 3.5, or I'm not playing tomorrow. I mean, do you see that as potentially happening?
Yeah.
Do you think that's fair?
No, it's not.
Okay, so here's the thing to remember, Miles. Who pays NIL?
The fans.
The fans do. So people keep sitting there and saying the schools make all this money from all these sports. Guys, the players are being paid by the fans. Okay, they're being paid through collectives. All right, there is no revenue share yet. That's not happening. It hasn't happened yet. But as of right now, if you're going to go out there and you're asking for more money, you're asking the fans for more money. If you're extorting more money trying to extort more money from the team, you're extorting that from the fans. Okay? And I'll be honest, if you are sitting there and holding out right before a spring game, or you're holding out before the fall opener or whatever, after you've already had an agreed deal that you have signed, and all of a sudden you decide you want more money, you are not extorting it from the school. You are extorting it from the fans. All right? Mm-hmm. That is coming from the fans. I donate money to NIL for my teams. I do. If you're sitting out and telling me that you want more money, and you're making more money than I do, but you're telling me you want me to pay you more, is that fair?
No.
It's frustrating, because that is where college football is going. The NCAA needs to step in and fix this, or this stuff is going to get more out of control than it already is. And I'd be very interested to see what team picks up Nico. And look, the guy's name is Iamaleava. Hello? What do you think is going to happen? He's going to leave. Anyway, I'm sorry. It's just, that whole situation just burns me. Because guys, you can sit there and say, oh, these schools make all this money. But the schools aren't the ones paying him, guys. It's the fans. All right? That is coming from fans and donors, donating money into a collective, which is then being used to pay the players. All right? If you are a player out there and you think you're going to stick it to your school, you're not sticking it to your school. You're sticking it to your fans. Think about that. The fans are the ones paying your salary. And guess what? When the fans get ticked off, are they going to keep going to the games? Are they going to get sick of you? Yeah, they are. People are going to get tired of being asked for more and more money over and over again in order to keep paying these athletes. And then you get teams that don't produce. What Miles, what do you think is going to happen when, let's just say, well, we'll use our school as an example. We're UCF fans. What do you think is going to happen when the school comes and says, hey, donor, yeah, I know we only went 4-8 last year. We went 4-8 last year, but we need more resources. So please donate more money, right? Isn't that what they always do?
Yeah.
So what happens when we give them more money?
They use it on the players and stuff.
Right. And then what happens next year when they go 4-8 again?
They ask for more money.
Okay. And then they say, we need more resources, right?
Yeah.
So what happens if they go 4-8 or worse after that?
They're going to ask for more money.
And what happens when the fans say, I could give you nothing, and you guys could probably have the same results you're having right now. I mean, do you think fans will get tired of it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's getting ridiculous. Look, guys, I'm all for players getting paid, but this stuff is getting out of control. I don't know when it's going to stop. The NCAA set this up, or didn't set this up, and they just let it get out of control. Something else to think about. You always see, and I saw RG3, who I respect, come out, and he did the false straw man argument about coaches. Miles, what happens when a coach leaves for another job?
They have to buy him out.
How much? Depending on the contract, right?
Yeah.
What happens if a school fires the coach?
They have to pay the buyout.
The school has to pay a buyout for the coach, right?
Yeah.
It's not the same as a player taking money and jumping from one school and jumping to another. It's not the same at all. If he wants to go to another school, that's why I firmly think that they need to do contracts with these players that are multi-year contracts and have very similar clauses to an NFL contract. If another team wants to buy you, they can try to trade for you. They can try to buy you out to get the team that currently has you under contract to release you. You could get cut, which makes you a free agent. All that stuff comes into play if you go down that route, and I'm fine with that. All right? But they've got to be careful, because what's going to happen is fans are going to get tired of paying all this money, getting constantly hit up for donations for this, for that, for this, for that. And then the product on the field, on the court, wherever, is just hot garbage. And they're just going to get tired of paying it. And I'll tell you this, and I've said it 100 times. Miles, do the NFL teams ask for donations to pay their players' salaries?
No.
No, they don't. They pay their players based on the TV contracts. And that goes back to revenue sharing, which is kind of a step towards that. But the NFL doesn't ask you to pay for their team salaries. It's all inclusive. They're paid based on their television contracts and ticket sales and all that stuff. But the television contracts lead to salary caps, and that's kind of where that is. So is it easier to be an NFL fan, or is it easier to be a college football fan monetarily right now?
NFL fan.
Now, let's talk about real briefly. So the UFL. You know that schools in college are paying more for their roster per year than UFL pays for their players for a roster per year, extensively. And those guys are professional football players. I could see an era where colleges will license their name, rent out their facilities to a professional league to run their football team, and they get like 40% of the profits and the proceeds to run the rest of their programs, which takes all this headache away from the school. It lets these guys be professional football players, which in all reality, most of them are at this point, because they're getting paid to play football. Let's just be honest. Saying anything else is not true. I could see that happening, and that would be the next step, potentially. And it would get rid of all this NIL deals and all the other stuff. It would be, to me, it would be a sad thing for college football in a way, because college football used to be about your team representing your team, and it didn't really matter back then if you won or lost. But when fans are asked to don't pony up thousands and thousands of their own dollars to pay salaries for these kids, then it becomes much more personal and they become vested. So if you're asking me for $1,000, or for, in my instance, tens of thousands of dollars to support a team, and the product on the field doesn't match it, what happens?
They get mad.
You just don't care, or you get mad about it. Whereas if you lost back in the day, they lost, oh well. But now I care about it. Let me ask another question, Miles. How many sports at an average university generate revenue for the college athletics program? Do you know?
3.
That's probably high.
2.
Maybe at some schools.
1.
1 primarily, and that's football. So all these people saying university made $50 million on their football program. These players deserve that money. Don't understand how college athletics work and how college athletics are funded. How do you think? Do you think women's basketball makes money?
Not at all.
Do you think women's soccer makes money?
No.
Do you think men's soccer makes money?
No.
How about track and field?
No.
How about tennis?
No.
How about swimming?
No.
How about wrestling?
No.
How about softball?
No.
How about baseball?
Maybe.
No, I would say no. But how about basketball? Men's basketball? Maybe, depending on the school. Some schools, they make revenue. Some schools, they do not. Like you go to a Kansas, that place makes bank. But you go to a school that doesn't have a great basketball program, like for instance UCF, and they're maybe breaking even or potentially losing money. So the what do you think? So what do you think would happen if all that revenue that comes from football stays at football? And we're not even talking about, just FYI, we're not even talking about supporting those programs. We're talking about you got to pay for facilities maintenance, you got to pay for athletic staff, you got to pay for equipment managers, you got to pay for the athletic department, you got to pay for the people that are raising funds, you got to pay. All that money comes out of that budget, all of it. So when you're sitting there running your mouth saying that college football makes all this money, give it to the players. You do not have any idea how college athletics works. None. No clue whatsoever. So, do you think it's fair? What do you think it would be fair to? What do you think would happen if we took all that money and just gave it to the players?
The schools wouldn't be rich, and they wouldn't be able to like upgrade facilities or get new coaches and stuff.
What do you think would happen to the other sports that don't bring in revenue?
They would just like not have a team and lose the teams and stuff.
But the problem is they're mandated by law to any. They have to do equal women's sports, equal men's sports. So the university by law has to fund these sports. And to be eligible in the NCAA, you have to have a certain number of Olympic sports. If you don't have them, you're not even eligible. So there's a catch-21. So if you're out there saying football makes all this money and it should stay in football and players get paid out of that, then you just don't understand college athletics. All right. Yeah, it's just crazy. So just a reminder that the Quarterback's Room is brought to you by Florida Football Prep for all your football needs. On a little bit lighter subject, if you have a youth team or a local team, Pop Warner or whatever, that needs customized team gear, the Quarterback's Room will do it for you. They're trying to keep their prices low because, with all the things going on in the world right now, they're endeavoring to keep their prices low. They keep their margin incredibly low, and they sell it basically at cost so that you guys will have good team gear, fan gear, because they've been in that situation where they understand that parents want to support their players that are out there on those youth teams. So if you need customized team gear, customized fan gear, go to www.floridafootballprep.com and reach out to them and see what they can do to help you out. And remember, if you happen to be looking right now, like, subscribe. If you don't like our take, if you like our take, give us that review and hopefully a 5-star and help us grow the program. We really wanted to focus more on youth sports and youth athletics, but unfortunately the news of today with the college sports, especially today, has been pretty crazy. So, and I think it's important because it's starting to dribble down into high school athletics. You know what I'm talking about, Miles?
Yeah.
So have you seen any kind of crazy recruiting and NIL stuff going on in high school athletics?
Yeah.
I mean, like what have you seen?
Players can flown around in private jets and condos and limousines and stuff.
Yeah, so here in Florida, here's an interesting thing. High school athletes, I think it's in Florida and in Georgia, can have NIL deals. That's right, NIL deals for high school athletes, and that's going on right now. We've seen players get recruited by teams. They'll literally fly you in a private jet, pick you up in a limo, take you around, show you all this stuff, and you're being recruited like a college recruit or an NFL player, and bringing you in, giving you a large amount of money to play high school football. That's crazy. Miles, how much NIL money and recruiting do you think happened when I was in high school?
None.
None. All right, my team in high school, we were number 1 in the state for like 6-8 weeks. We played with the kids that were there. There were no recruiting. There was no going out of your way to pull kids in. It was just the same kids you went back in the day, the same kids you went through grade school with. A lot of those guys were on your team. That's how you played football. And then you all kind of converged in high school, and we were all on the same team. We played for our school. There wasn't any guy from freaking the neighboring high school coming by and going, "Hey, this guy's pretty good. Let's get him to come over to our school." Now, does it happen now? Oh yeah, it happens a lot now. But it's really bad. Miles, what happened to the high school in the Orlando area that got busted on this? Do you remember?
Yeah, TFA got a what do you call it?
Death sentence?
Yeah, the death sentence.
Which meant what?
They couldn't all their wins were taken away, and they can't be in the playoffs for 2 years, and their coach can't go to any high school football games.
Yeah, so their coach literally was banned from attending any high school football game in the state of Florida. Period. That's how bad it was. These guys were number one in the state. They were crushing everybody, and bam. It's just sad. So this stuff is real, and it's leaking down into high school. Before too long, it's going to come down and hit Pop Warner and although it's still, I mean, it does happen in Pop Warner and AAU to a degree. I mean, how many times have you been asked to play for different teams?
A lot.
A lot. So now they haven't offered us any money yet, but so it's just it's a weird situation. But Miles, what's the most important thing for you when it goes to playing football when you're out there? What do you remember? What's the important thing to remember? Is it about you or is it about the team?
The team.
It's about the team. And do you remember, I told you a story once about Tom Brady.
Yeah.
The GOAT.
Mm-hmm.
And this kind of goes back to Nico, if you look at it. Tom Brady did what? What did he do when he was at the peak of his career with the Patriots? Do you remember what I told you he did?
Yeah, he requested less money so they could use more money to get more receivers and better players.
He understood that the way to cement his legacy and the way to increase his value was to allow the team to bring in higher quality players around him. All right, you can get $20 million as a quarterback, but if they're only paying $50,000 for your lineman, you're not going to have a very good lineman. You're going to get crushed. You're not, if the receivers can't catch a football, guess what? What's going to happen?
You're not going to win any games.
You're not going to win any games. You may end up walking out of there with a lot of money, but you're going to finish your career as that quarterback that got paid a lot of money and never really accomplished anything. Right?
Mm-hmm.
He understood the value of the team and the team around him. And I would endeavor to encourage some of the college guys today that are out there running after paychecks to think about, is that really what you want your legacy to be? Because you know what? How many players on this current roster do you know?
Like none.
At UCF, none. The last one we knew was Dylan Rusk, who just entered the transfer portal. He was a quarterback. We know some of the coaches over there now, but the roster is almost completely turned over. And players, my advice to you, your fans are your capital. All right? If you win the fans, you'll have a legacy there. If you look at like the Vols, the Tennessee, they call it a volunteer for life, VFL. And if you go out there and you crush it and you put your heart and soul into Tennessee, then you're going to have a legacy there. And guess what? Those fans will remember you for ever. If you ever need a job, those fans will take care of you. That community will take care of you. What happens if you don't stay there and you go there for a year or two and you transfer? Do you think the fans are going to care?
No.
If you hit desperate times sometime, you really need a job, do you think the volunteer fans are going to care?
No.
All right. So the question then becomes, players got to start thinking about their legacy. And they got to remember what's important to them long term, not seeking short term dollars, in my opinion. And remember that you're building relationships. And in the world today, relationships are everything. And we've had a lot of players that we've known that when they transfer out, all of a sudden they just disappear, right?
Mm-hmm.
You never hear from them again. They don't answer. They don't. It's sad, but remember, fans are your capital, and if the fans quit caring, they the game will just slide away. It's sad to see, and I wish more players would think about their legacy versus just the short term bag. And I understand that your football career is short, and a lot of you guys are out there trying to get money, but think longer term, because if you have a relationship with a fan or the fan base at some time in the future, you may need something from them. And if you don't care about the fans, or you're just chasing that short term bag of money, in the future, it may not work out well for you. But anyway, it's been kind of a depressing show.
Yeah.
But one last thing, it's not always the players that are not being honest. Sometimes you get misled about the situation on the ground. You get misled as a player. You get misled about different things, and it's happened. I mean, it's happened to us. I mean, you've gotten invited to play, and then you get there, and the situation isn't what you thought it was, or what it was you were told it was going to be. Am I right?
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to make hard decisions, and I understand that. But always, always, always remember that the team is the most important thing, and the fans are your capital. Long term, that's what will set you up for life. And with that, just a reminder that the Quarterback's Room, again, Florida Football Prep. Go to www.floridafootballprep. Go to YouTube. Watch our videos on YouTube. It's not just the content from the show. We have other content on YouTube. We're on Instagram and on X. You can follow myself or Miles individually we're both on X, and we appreciate it. Miles is on Instagram and is kind of growing in some of his endeavors. So we appreciate you guys' support, and it's for the love of the game. We do this because we love the game, and it's just something we do together. You got anything final?
No.
As always.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us today in the Quarterback's Room.